Hello everybody and good morning to you. My name is Don Arleth and it's time for World News here on TVP World, so let's get started. Poland's Interior Minister Marcin Kierwiński confirmed that an act of sabotage was the cause of the explosion on a key Warsaw-Lublin rail link, destroying part of the track. A national security meeting was called this morning and is currently underway. Rail traffic on the route has resumed and is operating normally.
The Polish government announced today there were two separate acts of sabotage over the weekend on a rail line running from Warsaw to the eastern Polish city of Lublin, about 100 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. The attacks involved an explosion which destroyed 1 meter of rail line, as well as sabotaged power lines on the same section of track.
At first I thought that something exploded, then it turned out that our local tracks had been blown up.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is taking the act seriously.
Blowing up the rail track on the Warsaw-Lublin route is an unprecedented act of sabotage targeting directly the security of the Polish state and its people. This route is also crucially important for delivering aid to Ukraine. We will catch the perpetrators, whoever they are.
At this point, we can say that an explosive device was detonated to damage the railway tracks.
In June of this year, the AMPER 2025 crisis response exercises in Poland involved tackling exactly this type of attack. Polish officials have long accused the Kremlin of waging a hybrid campaign against countries aiding Ukraine.
Our solidarity with friendly Poland following an act of sabotage on Polish railways. We hope the investigation will provide answers, and we also stand ready to assist if called upon. Could have been another hybrid attack by Russia to test responses. If true, they need to be strong.
The threats to our security are real and growing. Europe must urgently boost capacity to protect our skies and our infrastructure. Poland is the largest defense spender in Europe, and it will be the biggest beneficiary of the SAFE instrument.
Last month, Polish authorities arrested 8 people suspected of spying or planning attacks on behalf of Russia. And on Monday, yet another railway incident occurred in Slovenia. Slovenian officials are already saying it looks like sabotage.
This isn't just negligence. It's a planned attempt to harm others.
This is the second incident of its kind in Slovenia in recent weeks. For TVP World, Randy Potts.
Sabotage in Poland over the weekend adds to dozens of incidents of hybrid attacks across Europe, highlighting the continent's vulnerability. Paulina Piasecka, head of Civitas University's Terrorism Research Center, warns the next strike could be a single cyber attack capable of crippling power grids and disrupting critical systems.
For example, this thing that is easiest and theoretically has the most asymmetric return on investment. So the lowest possible investment in attack and the highest possible return from this attack. That would be probably an attack in cyberspace against an important element of the critical infrastructure. Attacking an important electric grid. Attacking a crossroads between important transfers of energy flows in the region, causing blackouts. The blackouts, electric blackouts, it's not only about the fact that we don't have the access to Instagram and can't look at cats on Instagram. It's also about the hospitals. It's also about
Critical infrastructure.
Yes, and it's also about the lives of people who are dependent, for example, on life support. It's also about the communication. It's about so many things that are dependent on computers, which are dependent on electric energy to function. So that is what I would look at. The diversion by creating kinetic attacks, but also very, very subtle and quite often very directed attacks against the critical infrastructure in cyberspace.
Despite the tensions with the Lukashenko regime and migratory pressure on the Poland-Belarus border, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has announced that 2 border crossings have reopened. The resumption of activities at the border crossing comes at a time of heightened hybrid warfare, especially over the last 48 hours.
This was the scene last night at one of the newly reopened Poland-Belarus border crossings. After months of tension, Poland has reopened 2 major road routes, one in Dobrowniki and another in Kuźnica, adding to another crossing in Terespol that had remained partially open. Why now? Well, Prime Minister Donald Tusk says Poland's confident in the upgraded security along its eastern frontier.
This is the safest, best guarded border in Europe today. I am convinced of this. And this is why I decided, in consultation with local authorities and entrepreneurs from the Podlasia region, to reopen these border crossings.
The rules do differ by location. Bobrovniki allows both passenger and cargo traffic, but Kuźnica is limited to passenger vehicles, no buses or freight just yet. The impact, however, is already visible, and with electronic queue registration returning at Bobrovniki and soon at Bruzgi, those long nights spent sleeping in truck cabs may finally be over.
We hope that it's going to be at least a little bit easier for the drivers waiting in these long lines.
Warsaw closed the Kuźnica crossing in November of 2021, accusing Belarus of trying to push migrants across the border in order to destabilize both Poland and the EU. Bobrovniki was shut down in February of 2023, not long after a Belarusian court sentenced Polish-Belarusian journalist and activist Andrzej Poczobut to prison in a case widely condemned as politically motivated.
First of all, there is about 20 journalists still imprisoned in Belarus, and Andrzej Poczobut is only one of them, and there are more than 1,200 political prisoners.
There is hope that this gesture made by Poland will help get Poczobut and many others still being held by the Lukashenko regime released.
Can we expect more releases of political prisoners in Belarus? We'll see. That's definitely the goal of Washington's recent diplomatic push, but it's also a key objective for the Polish Foreign Ministry.
Back in September, Donald Trump's envoy John Cole met Alexander Lukashenko and secured the release of 52 prisoners. The Trump administration says their release should be seen as part of U.S. efforts to normalize relations with Belarus. Now, the border reopening is drawing praise from Minsk. The Belarusian Foreign Ministry called Poland's move constructive and beneficial for citizens. No matter what, progress is being made, and life will now be easier for many families and businesses. Warsaw, however, stresses that this is not a full return to business as usual.
We'll see what happens, how authorities in Belarus will respond to what is definitely a gesture of goodwill.
The government makes it clear that if security risks rise, the border could be closed again. For TVP World, I'm Konrad Gorlinski.
On Tuesday, Polish MPs will vote to elect their new Speaker of the lower house of Polish Parliament. Szymon Hołownia, who served in the role for 2 years, resigned last week. According to the coalition agreement, Włodzimierz Czarzasty, a representative of the New Left Party, is supposed to take over the position. He will have to gather an absolute majority of votes. At least half of all Polish MPs have to be present during the vote for its results to be valid. Members of the ruling coalition, comprised of the Civic Coalition, Poland 2050, the Polish People's Party, and the New Left, have declared their support for Czarzasty. Members of the Law and Justice, Confederation, and Razem parties announced they will vote against Czarzasty's candidacy. On Monday, Finland began the Northern Strike 225 exercises at the training ground near Rovaniemi, with a Polish artillery unit taking part. In total, approximately 2,200 soldiers and 500 vehicles and artillery pieces, including 2 Polish Homar-K missile launchers, are involved in the drills, which will run until November 25th.
According to a spokesperson for the Finnish army, the aim of the Northern Strike 225 exercise is to test artillery firepower coordination between allies in difficult early winter conditions. The drills are led by a brigade from Kainuu, a region in Finland located on the border with Russia. The Polish deployment carries significant weight as it marks the first time Homar-K systems have been airlifted abroad using Antonov AN-124 aircraft under NATO's strategic transport network.
On Monday, on the anniversary of the Velvet Revolution, up to 100,000 people gathered in Bratislava, protesting what they see as democratic backsliding and pro-Russian policies of Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico. Fico, who's in his 4th term as Prime Minister, has scrapped a special office to investigate corruption, taken more control of public media, and repeatedly accused detractors of planning a coup.
We were here in 1989, like little children, crying for change. And we value that change, that democracy. That's what we're all about. It's hard for us to live like this, that we see what direction it's going in. We think that we belong in Europe and not where Fico is pushing us.
I expect that the result will be a signal to the government that we will not let our freedom be encroached upon, and that democracy, freedom, everything that November 17th symbolized, is as important today as before. And I would also say that we will send a signal of unity as the opposition, and readiness to change this government. And from you, classmates and students, I do not want heroism. It's enough for you not to be silent, to not be convinced that you are small and powerless. Change does not begin in Parliament, but in the heads of people who are willing to jingle keys and stand on the sidewalk in front of the government office. So do not be silent.
Diana Herka, the mother of one of the victims of the Novi Sad railway station canopy collapse, ended her 16-day hunger strike on Monday, but is determined to carry on fighting for justice. Protesters in Serbia continue to call for the resignation of President Vučić over mismanagement and failure to prosecute anyone over this tragedy.
First, I will call students and citizens for a meeting this evening to discuss further steps. I received a blessing from 2 priests to end the hunger strike. I received it from medical workers from Sombor, Belgrade. I don't know where people wrote from. I also received calls to end the hunger strike, and I will end it today, but I'm staying here. We still live in some hope, and that's why we come here regularly.
Like most people in Serbia, we believe that change will come. This is just an attempt to show that we are on Dijana's side, that her sacrifice must stop because it leads nowhere.
On Monday, U.S. President Donald Trump said he would support potential U.S. military operations in Mexico to stop drug cartels. Trump added that he will do whatever it takes to stop the flow of drugs into the United States, including strikes on Mexican territory.
Would I launch strikes in Mexico to stop drugs? It's okay with me. Whatever we have to do to stop drugs. Mexico is... Look, I looked at Mexico City over the weekend. There's some big problems over there. They're killing our people. That's like a war. Would I do it? I'd be proud to. I'd probably go into Congress and say, hey, and you know what? The Democrats and the Republicans would both agree.
The UN Security Council has adopted a resolution supporting U.S. President Donald Trump's peace plan for the Gaza Strip. 13 countries voted in favor, while China and Russia abstained from the vote.
The adopted document provides for the creation of an international stabilization force responsible for securing Gaza's borders with Israel and Egypt. The new ISF will also ensure the safety of civilians and humanitarian zones, as well as train and cooperate with the new Palestinian police force. The resolution states that with the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, as well as the reforms of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, the conditions of a credible path to Palestinian statehood may finally be established. On the other hand, Hamas rejected the proposal for disarmament contained in the U.S. resolution, arguing that it would violate its right to resistance.
And finally, Poland has defeated Malta 3-2 in the World Cup qualifiers. The Polish national football team has finished second in its group and will compete in the playoffs for a spot in the 2026 World Cup hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Poland had already secured its spot in the playoffs ahead of yesterday's game in Malta. The result of the match, however, was important for positioning in the next stage. Poland's performance was disappointing, and Malta was close to making an upset. Polish footballer Piotr Zielinski scored the winning goal in the 85th minute. He said after the game that Malta was able to surprise Poland with its passing and offensive skills. Now the Polish national team can focus on the playoffs. Its next rivals in the fight for the World Cup qualification will be revealed at a draw this Thursday. And that concludes this edition of World News, but do stay tuned for TVP World for more.